Ben Affleck's Batman will live on in the multiverse-twisting Flash movie, but Matt Reeves' The Batman is doing something new in a world all its own. Here's everything you need to know about Robert Pattinson and the Batman. The Batman has been in development for so long that the Bat was originally supposed to be a totally different man. Originally, the Batman was imagined as an entry in the DC Extended Universe, working in the same world as Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice. At the time, it was a given that Ben Affleck would be reprising the role of Bruce Wayne, while also serving as the movie's writer and director. Once Affleck stepped down as director and a script was shelved, new director Matt Reeves came on board with his own pitch for a Batman film that would call for a younger actor in the role. Robert Pattinson was Reeves' first choice for Bruce Wayne, with the filmmaker saying he wrote the part specifically for him. Pattinson is best known to the public for his lead role in the Twilight films, but in the years since those movies came and went, he's also become a critical darling for his work in smaller films like Good Time and The Lighthouse. Pattinson's casting was something of a surprise. For years, he's avoided major franchise projects, reportedly having a less than stellar experience with Twilight. But it turns out that he, like a lot of people, is a lifelong Batman fan and jumped at the chance to portray his own version of the character. Pattinson's casting in 2019 was met with a predictable amount of fan backlash, and Pattinson also stirred up a bit of controversy when he jokingly claimed he wouldn't be hitting the gym to beef up for the role. This kind of criticism is nothing new, and it's hard to take too seriously. Remember that originally people had doubts about Heath Ledger as the Joker. Other criticisms around his interpretation haven't made a lot of sense, like mocking the so-called emo black makeup around Pattinson's eyes when he removes his cowl. Those critics are apparently unaware that every live-action Batman since Michael Keaton has filled in the space between their eyes and their cowl with black makeup, at least when the cowl is on. Unlike the Caped Crusader in Batman Returns and Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice, this Batman still has the makeup on when he removes his cowl, which just makes sense. One thing's for certain, Pattinson's take will definitely be different from what we've seen on screen before. Less charming, more broken. The actor told Movie Maker, "I want to play a dirty, dirty, slimy Batman." Soon after Ben Affleck walked away from the Batman directing gig, news broke that Matt Reeves would be taking on the task of shepherding the Batman from concept to completion. While the Batman will be Reeves' first foray into the world of superheroes, he is no stranger to films featuring high concepts and larger-than-life characters, as evidenced by his directorial work on Cloverfield and the rebooted Planet of the Apes films. At first, the intent was for Reeves to use Ben Affleck's script, directing Affleck in the role, but a few months after he was brought on board as director, Reeves announced that he was tossing out Affleck's screenplay and starting from scratch. While Reeves' script features a younger protagonist than Affleck's would have, the director told Variety that he still hopes to deliver a mature, ambitious film that doesn't talk down to its audience and offers a, quote, epic and emotional new take on the character. When the Batman was first announced, it was intended as another chapter in the DC Extended Universe, pitting Ben Affleck's veteran Dark Knight against the assassin Slade Wilson, aka Deathstroke, to be played by Joe Manganiello. Manganiello's role in the film was teased in Zack Snyder's version of Justice League, which showed Lex Luthor revealing Batman's secret identity to Deathstroke.
His name is Bruce Wayne.
According to Manganiello, Deathstroke would have used this information to exact his cruel vengeance on those close to Bruce Wayne, and to do battle with both Batman and his teammate Batgirl. This is one of the many plot threads from Zack Snyder's Justice League that are now left dangling indefinitely as DC Films retools its cinematic universe. After discarding the original script for the Batman, Matt Reeves set out to write a new story that would stand more on its own. He said in a 2022 interview with Esquire, "I respect that the DC universe has become an extended universe and all the movies were kind of connected, but another Batman film, it shouldn't have to carry the weight of connecting the characters from all those other movies. I didn't want them in there. Instead, the Batman would be set in its own continuity, divorced from the DCEU. But fans itching for more Batfleck will still get at least one final film featuring his take on the character when The Flash hits theaters in November 2022. In an interview with The Hollywood Reporter in 2019, Reeves said that his screenplay for the Batman would be a, quote, point-of-view-driven noir Batman tale. He also said it would lean into the notion of Bruce Wayne as the world's greatest detective. Reeves also promised an emotional, transformative arc for the character. Reeves told Digital Spy that he sees Batman as a, quote, tortured soul who is struggling to find a way to do the right thing in a very imperfect world. As Christian Bale's Batman famously said in Batman Begins,
"It's not who I am underneath, but what I do that defines me."
Based on Reeves' comments, we expect his take on the character to be more introspective and intellectual than what we've seen in previous films. While it's probably a safe bet that the Batman will feature its fair share of fistfights, explosions, and mind-blowing bat gadgets, after all, this is still a DC superhero movie. Don't be surprised if Reeves' Batman turns out to be defined by who he is underneath, after all. It was revealed early on that key villain roles in the Batman would be filled by the Penguin and Catwoman. After several rounds of lively casting rumors that included Vanessa Hudgens, Aubrey Plaza, Lupita Nyong'o, Tessa Thompson, Gugu Mbatha-Raw, Alexandra Shipp, and Logan Browning, speculation about who will be portraying Selina Kyle in the Batman finally came to an end. Big Little Lies star Zoe Kravitz will be portraying the Caped Crusader's iconic femme fatale in Matt Reeves' film. Selina has a rich and complex history with Bruce Wayne in the comics, and her role in the film could go any number of directions. The Batman won't be Kravitz's first or even second foray into comic book fare, although it'll be her first starring role in a superhero film. She previously played the mutant Angel Salvador, aka Tempest, in 2011's X-Men First Class, and also provided the voice for Mary Jane in 2018's Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. The most perfectly relevant gig on her resume? She's already played Catwoman once before, having lent her voice to the Lego Batman movie. While Catwoman has rarely been depicted as an outright villain in Batman mythology, the past 30 years in particular have seen her rise into an anti-hero in her own right. In the comics, Selina Kyle has led her own ongoing comic series almost continuously since 1993, after a limited series run in 1989. She's arguably the protagonist of 1992's Batman Returns, got a much-mocked film of her own in 2004, and fought alongside Batman in 2012's The Dark Knight Rises. If the trailers are any indication, the Batman will explore the character from a few different angles, as a thief, as a vigilante, and as a romantic foil for Batman. Zoe Kravitz told Empire magazine that the Batman is an origin story for Selina. In keeping with Matt Reeves' vision of the Batman as a film noir, Kravitz sees Selina as a femme fatale, as well as a fighter. Kravitz studied a mix of different martial arts that would be practical for a smaller, leaner person to use when taking on larger opponents. Selina's severe haircut and makeshift Catwoman disguise seen in the film seem heavily inspired by her appearance in the famous 4-issue arc Batman Year One, by writer Frank Miller and artist David Mazzucchelli. In this story, Selina follows Batman's example and creates a costumed identity under which to stalk the roofs of Gotham, but she and Batman don't have much interaction. The early flirtation between Bat and Cat is explored more fully in its spiritual sequel, The Long Halloween, by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale, which has been cited along with Year One as one of the inspirations for the Batman. The path the Batman took from announcement to release spanned nearly 8 years. It was among the slate of 10 DC Comics-inspired films that Warner Bros. Announced way back in October 2014, before cameras had even stopped rolling on Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice. The Matt Reeves Batman was initially supposed to be released on June 25, 2021, but this announcement was made before the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, which halted production about a quarter of the way through shooting. This pushed the release to October 1, 2021, but an outbreak of the virus on set in September 2020 paused production for an additional 2 weeks. This may have contributed to the release date being moved yet again, though it's more likely that Warner Bros. Simply wanted a few more months for cases of the disease to decline, and perhaps to not have to release the film day and date on HBO Max with the rest of their 2021 slate. Shortly after the second COVID delay, The Batman received its third and final release date of March 4, 2022. The film will play exclusively in theaters for 45 days and then stream on HBO Max beginning April 19th. The Batman finds Bruce Wayne in less than ideal condition, and we're not just talking about those scars on his back. A year into his crime-fighting career as Batman, Wayne is still struggling with some deep psychological scars and allowing his life outside the cape and cowl to crumble. Writer-director Matt Reeves has stated in an interview with Empire that this version of Bruce Wayne is not really a socialite at all and is letting his family home and legacy decay. Reeves' inspiration for the depressed, rage-fueled Bruce Wayne? Tragic 90s rock icon Kurt Cobain. According to his feature in Esquire, Reeves became fixated on the Nirvana song Something in the Way while writing the first act of the script, leading him to imagine Bruce Wayne as a total recluse struggling with addiction, in his case, to violence. He cites the song, which was remixed for film's first theatrical trailer, and the Gus Van Sant film Last Days, which centered around a Kurt Cobain-type character, as inspiring this take on Bruce. According to Pattinson, his Batman is constantly battling against his own urge to kill, displacing the rage he feels towards his parents' killer onto the other criminals of Gotham. Being Batman is an outlet for his anger, but not necessarily a salve. In short, he's not getting better. Early in the development of the Batman, Matt Reeves parried speculation that his young Batman movie would be yet another origin story. Instead, Reeves has defined his film as a Year 2 Batman tale, skipping past the well-trod territory of Batman Begins and Batman Year 1. Reeves told Esquire, "A lot of times you see stories where he's already become Batman. Then the Rogues Gallery villain comes in and it's then their story and you watch him go toe-to-toe with them. I wanted the main character in this story to be a Batman who was a year in and still trying to figure out how to do this, how to be effective, and he's not necessarily succeeding." Anytime a filmmaker comes on board to reboot the Batman character for the silver screen, you'll hear the same familiar refrain. They want to take the character back to his gritty, pulpy roots. Usually, this means looking back at one of two essential graphic novels of the mid-1980s, The Dark Knight Returns and Batman Year 1, both written by Frank Miller, which helped codify a more grounded take that had been evolving for decades in the pages of the monthly comics. Matt Reeves is certainly not an exception to this. Year 1 is indeed one of his favorites. He's also cited Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale's 1997 miniseries The Long Halloween as an inspiration. In fact, at one point, Warner Bros. Animation was told to put their own adaptation of The Long Halloween story on hold because it was being considered as the direct source material for the Batman. It wouldn't be the first time the comic served as inspiration for a Batman film either. The Long Halloween is one of the clearest comics influences on 2008's The Dark Knight. More exciting, however, is Reeves' professed love of not only pre-Miller Batman creators like Bill Finger and Neil Adams, but the 2000 graphic novel Batman Ego by cartoonist Darwin Cook. Ego is a deep and visually stunning psychological study of the Dark Knight, perfect inspiration for a Batman film that's intended to be richly emotional and focused on the title character. The trailers also hint that certain aspects of Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo's run on the character may make an appearance as well. Character actor Jeffrey Wright became the fifth man to portray Gotham City Police Commissioner James Gordon in a live-action feature, following Neil Hamilton in the 1966 continuation of the Batman television series, Pat Hingle in the Burton and Schumacher series, Gary Oldman in the Dark Knight trilogy, and J.K. Simmons in the DC Extended Universe. Wright is no stranger to major franchises, having played CIA agent Felix Leiter in 3 installments of the James Bond series, BT in the Hunger Games Mockingjay, and having lent his voice to Uatu, the Watcher in Marvel's What If. In the years since his casting in The Batman, Jeffrey Wright has also lent his voice to the Dark Knight himself in Batman: The Audio Adventures, a campy radio-style drama that streams on HBO Max. According to an interview with IndieWire, Wright was attracted to the realistic tone of the film. "I saw the themes around corruption and class tensions and all of the things that he wanted to bring from the outside into this world, so it had some relevance." Warner Bros. Confirmed in October 2019 that Paul Dano had officially come aboard the film as the Riddler. Dano is well suited for a dark and menacing villain, having been nominated for an Emmy for his work on the Showtime limited series Escape at Dannemora, in which he portrayed real-life convicted murderer David Sweat. Dano has played a wide variety of roles during his eclectic career, from gently comedic turns in films like Swiss Army Man and Little Miss Sunshine, to more serious roles in films such as Prisoners, Okja, and There Will Be Blood. The thread that seems to tie all of Dano's characters together is a sense of deep interior personality and emotional complexity, which will serve him well as the enigmatic Riddler. Matt Reeves' casting of the soulful, often somber Dano is a far cry from the rubber-limbed Jim Carrey, who played the role in 1995's Batman Forever. When Matt Reeves imagined his ideal Batman film, it was always through the lens of a detective story. From there, it was a logical leap for the film's main antagonist to be more of an intellectual challenge for Batman than a physical threat. Hence the Riddler, a Batman villain famous for his puzzles and mind games rather than fighting prowess. In The Batman, Matt Reeves has reimagined the Riddler as a serial killer in the tradition of the Zodiac Killer, the real-life murderer who mailed clues about his targets and identity to newspapers in the late 1960s. Reeves told Esquire, "I started thinking of the Zodiac Killer because he did create a costume for himself and he wore a black hood. He had his own insignia. He was an early anti-superhero, a scary figure who terrorized California." This version of the Riddler, who uses his canonical birth name from the comics, Edward Nashton, taunts Batman with written and recorded messages and may even already be aware of his secret identity as Bruce Wayne. Indeed, Riddler seems to be directing Batman towards solving a mystery about corruption in Gotham that involves the Wayne family. Without question, the most surprising casting choice in The Batman is Colin Farrell as Oswald Penguin Cobblepot. Cobblepot is typically portrayed as a short, ugly man with a rotund body, a far cry from Colin Farrell's leading man good looks. But like Danny DeVito and, to a lesser extent, Gotham actor Robin Lord Taylor before him, Farrell's appearance has been altered via applied prosthetics to make him a closer match for the notorious crime boss of the comics. It took between 2 and 4 hours to apply Farrell's facial scars, a heftier neck, and receding hairline, though his transformation didn't stop there. Farrell is practically unrecognizable in his performance, donning the type of thick New York accent you'd hear in a Scorsese gangster film.
Whoa, take it easy, sweetheart.
Or should we say Coppola? Farrell cites the Godfather character Fredo Corleone, the weak-willed older brother of Kingpin Michael Corleone, as his inspiration for the character. Like Fredo, Farrell told Empire Online that his Oz Cobblepot is, quote, rippled by the insignificance that he lives within, in a family that is full of very strong, very bright, very capable, very violent men. It's a role he says he'd be interested in exploring in a sequel, and he may very well get the chance to spend more time with the character. There's a spin-off series for the Penguin in early development at HBO Max. In the comics, Oswald comes from old Gotham money, operating his criminal empire under the very thin guise of legitimate business. He's often portrayed as one of the only traditional gangsters to maintain his foothold in the Gotham underworld, after the rise of more outlandish villains like the Joker, Two-Face, and Black Mask. Whether Oz's inferiority complex may come from feeling overshadowed by his family legacy, or from the changing face of crime in Gotham in the Batman, we'll just have to wait and see. The impressive cast of the Batman also includes Emmy-winning character actor John Turturro, who will be playing Gotham's powerful crime boss Carmine Falcone. Sometimes nicknamed the Roman and based on Marlon Brando's character from The Godfather, Falcone first debuted in Frank Miller and David Mazzucchelli's Batman Year One comics, but assumed a much more prominent role later on in Batman The Long Halloween. In the comics, Falcone effectively runs Gotham City and is determined to put a stop to Batman's vigilante actions in order to solidify his stronghold on the city. Falcone has previously been portrayed on screen by Tom Wilkinson in the film Batman Begins and John Doman on the television series Gotham. Further complicating Falcone's relationship with Batman in the comics is the fact that Bruce's father, Thomas Wayne, once saved Falcone's life, a life debt which Falcone has sworn to someday repay. Andy Serkis, the actor best known for his groundbreaking CGI performance capture roles as Gollum in The Lord of the Rings and Caesar in the rebooted Planet of the Apes trilogy, will show his actual face in The Batman as Alfred Pennyworth, the Wayne family butler who raised the young Bruce after the murder of his parents. Serkis becomes the 5th actor to play Alfred in a live-action feature film, following Alan Napier, Michael Goff, Michael Caine, and Jeremy Irons. The character has also been a fixture on the small screen in recent years, portrayed by Sean Pertwee on Gotham from 2014 to 2019, and the lead character of his own series Pennyworth, starring Jack Bannon on HBO Max. Serkis has plenty of history with Matt Reeves, who also directed Dawn of the Planet of the Apes and War for the Planet of the Apes, and Reeves has apparently secured Serkis a sizable role in The Batman. Serkis has told interviewers that the emotional connection between Alfred and Bruce is the center of the film, and trailers have hinted that the story may hinge on some Wayne family secret from which Alfred has been trying to protect his surrogate son. A larger role for Alfred in this film would be in keeping with the way his character has been expanded in the comics over the past few decades, from a relatively passive participant in Batman's war on crime to an irreplaceable asset with a history as a military medic and a secret agent of the British government. Particularly during Batman's early years before the expansion of the Bat family, Alfred is Bruce's only friend and confidant. Similarly to the way Matt Reeves announced the casting for Andy Serkis as Alfred, the director took to Twitter again at the beginning of December 2019 to reveal that Peter Sarsgaard had joined the cast of The Batman. Unlike Reeves' previous few casting announcements, he didn't hashtag this tweet with the name of the character Sarsgaard will be playing, instead just sharing an animated GIF. Sources originally told The Hollywood Reporter that the actor would either be playing a corrupt cop named Wasserman or a district attorney, leading to speculation that he could be playing Harvey Dent, better known as the iconic Batman villain Two-Face. However, in early 2020, a Warner Brothers official press release identified Sarsgaard's character as Gotham DA Gil Colson, a new character who doesn't exist in the comics. The character has already made an appearance in a promo clip being used as a hostage by the Riddler during a brazen attack on a funeral. On February 13, 2020, Matt Reeves gave us all an early Valentine's Day gift in the form of a red-tinted first look at Robert Pattinson as the Caped Crusader. The 55-second camera test features Pattinson in the full bat suit and cowl, emerging from the darkness into a sharp crimson close-up. Even this partial glimpse let fans know that Pattinson's Batman would have a very different look than the Dark Knights that have come before. But what really sells the look isn't any particular alchemy of materials or cut, but Pattinson's distinctive face, which becomes the ultimate focus of the short video. Like Ben Affleck and Christian Bale before him, Pattinson is gifted with an authentic Bruce Wayne jawline, cutting a silhouette so recognizable that it makes you really wonder why he thinks he can get away with only covering up half his face. On March 4th, 2020, Matt Reeves tweeted out the first look at the new Batmobile. Gone is the bulky tank-like tumbler of Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy, as well as the almost comically tricked-out stealth bomber meets Fury Road version of Batman's ride that Ben Affleck drove in Justice League. For the Batman, Robert Pattinson will be driving a reimagined Batmobile that looks like it could have been driven straight out of a high-end garage, as opposed to a high-tech research facility a la Batman Begins. This new take on Bruce Wayne's iconic transport leans much more toward a classic muscle car than its more military-inspired predecessors, calling to mind well-known models like the 1970 Dodge Challenger and the Pontiac GTO. Since the Batman is supposed to take place early on in Bruce's tenure as the Caped Crusader, it's easy to believe that this version of the Batmobile represents one of the billionaire vigilante's first attempts at a superhero car, in which he modified something he already owned rather than building something new. The latest version of the Batmobile comes with a before-its-time in-dash video display, a sleek black custom design, and an absolute monster of an engine. The Batman is deliberately isolated from the DC Extended Universe, where most of DC's films take place, and is intended to stand alone. It neither relies on context from previous film incarnations of Batman, nor does it prioritize setting up sequels and spin-offs. Star Robert Pattinson seemed to imply to Total Film after seeing the finished cut that he had a hard time imagining the movie leading to a full film series, even though he admits it probably will. As he put it, "It's a really unusual Batman story, and it almost seems harder for me to imagine it being a series afterwards. I mean, they always have that little bit at the end that's like, and coming up, but other than that, it feels strangely personal. I think people will be quite shocked at how different it is." At the same time, it's been reported that Warner Bros. Is chomping at the bit to spin the Batman into a shared universe of films and television shows, having already put 2 HBO Max series into development ahead of the film's release. One would center around the Gotham City Police Department, while another would focus on Colin Farrell's Penguin. This cross-platform Batman universe would have to coexist alongside a few other live-action projects set in their own continuities, but this is nothing new. The HBO Max series Titans and the CW's Batwoman both feature a number of Batman characters, take place on different Earths in the DC multiverse. Each show even has its own Bruce Wayne, played by Ian Glenn and Warren Christie respectively, though both series avoid showing Batman in costume. And then, of course, there's the DC Extended Universe of films, which in 2022 alone will feature both the Ben Affleck and Michael Keaton incarnations of Batman. But even though Batman as a character is going multiversal on the big screen, it looks like the Batman is set to stand alone. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more Looper videos about your favorite movies and TV shows are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.